You're listening to Why We Do What We Do. Welcome to Why We Do What We Do. I'm your host, Abraham.
And I'm your host, Shane.
And this is a Why We Do What We Do mini, not a full episode, just a quick jaunt down the road of inquiry.
Yeah, sometimes we just have questions and we have to get those questions answered. And now we have working knowledge about this thing so we can go to parties and have nice trivia.
Exactly. And I said road of inquiry. Maybe cul-de-sac is a more appropriate way to describe the journey that we're going on today. This is quick.
Yeah, like instead of an ocean of information, we're going into an inlet.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah.
Possibly right. A koi pond.
Maybe a canal.
Yeah.
Yeah, a puddle of inquiry.
And today we're asking the question, does stress turn our hair gray? This is something that I've sort of wondered about and wanted to look into the research and see what's there.
It's something I have personal stake in.
My hair is definitely turning gray. Fortunately, from the quality of the video, if you're seeing this on video, you can't really tell that, but Shane's beard gives it away.
Yeah, my beard, and I'm wearing a hat right now, and I've taken pictures of my hair over the last couple of years, nice. And it has gotten gray rapidly.
Yeah,
it is really kind of bizarre how quick my hair is going gray. It's very much so like the Crash Test Dummy song.
Fun.
Once there was a kid who got into an accident and couldn't go to school, but when he finally came back, his hair went from black into bright white. I don't know if y'all remember that moral.
I don't, but that's really fun. I like it.
You don't remember that song?
No. I think I might recognize it if I listen to it, but it does not ring any bells right now.
You don't need to hear it. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So, does stress turn our hair gray? Well, first, I think there's an important discussion to be had about what stress is. And this is probably a larger discussion that may warrant a full topic, maybe another mini, who knows.
Yeah.
But just to define it really quick, the World Health Organization...
Who?
Yes, exactly. Defines stress as a state of worry or mental tension caused by difficult situations.
But worrying and difficult situations are arbitrary and language-based. But we do know that non-human animals demonstrate no use of language. We already kind of see that to the degree that humans do. But non-human animals can get stressed. And we do know that they can get stressed through different kind of behavioral signs.
Yeah, so sort of more broadly, we can characterize stress as contexts that we are highly motivated to escape. And you could also sort of add to that, just as a little more detail, that these are contexts in which there are often many threats that bad things will happen. Now, those threats can be tangible, such as standing on the edge of a cliff. You can easily see the possible danger there. Or it can be perceived through a history of association. And an example of that might be someone who is threatening you with harmful action.
Now, the latter doesn't mean too much to non-languaging organisms, although tone, like loud and aggressive tones, can carry the meaning for organisms, like yelling at an animal, loud warning sounds from other animals. Those are different examples of what might produce some kind of stressors in the environment. Actually, super interesting too. I don't know if you got into this, and this is probably an episode on stress that we'll have to do. You can actually measure stress in blood. There's some indicator in blood that they use to measure levels of stress. And I can't remember what it is, but we'll have to talk about that at some point in time.
Stress Blood could be a band name, maybe.
Stress Blood. Yeah, it probably is somewhere. So if you are in the band Stress Blood, please email us. We'll share your demo.
Indeed. I actually just do a search on Bandcamp and see if what comes up when I type in Stress Blood.
I'm going to do that right now while we go through this episode.
Great. So the age-old wisdom is that constant exposure, or even acute exposure to stress, can turn our hair gray. Usually this is prolonged, this is over time, and this sort of constant ongoing stress. And an example commonly cited is having kids. But this can include these acute, high-intensity, one-time events sort of shocking your hair into a gray or white sort of color, if you will. That's, to be clear, I'm not saying that's science sort of fact right now. I'm saying that's sort of the conventional wisdom about this.
Yeah, there's a story that I think of here. There's a castle in the Czech Republic called Castle Huska, which is supposed to be the haunted castle. There's a portal to hell in the middle of it. And there's an old story about they lowered a servant down into the hole to see what was going on. And when they brought him back up, his hair had turned from a dark color to a bright white because of all the acute stress he experienced in that several minutes that he was down in the hole. So it's kind of an ongoing discussion. When these big, shocking one-time events, they immediately change your hair. But we have to ask the question if there's any truth to it. And until recently, many scientists didn't really think so. Now, that's not to say that stress isn't harmless. The deleteriousness of stress has been well known for a long time, for a very, very long time. Just it wasn't thought to be actually responsible for graying hair. So we know there was other effects, like it impacts your heart and like how your body moves and how your brain processes stuff. But we didn't really know if it impacted hair. But now we have some information.
Yes. So we'll talk more about what we know about stress and its relation to graying hair after we get to hear some ads for maybe hair dye. Okay, we're back. So the spoiler, or the big giveaway, the big reveal is apparently stress can actually cause hair to turn gray. Now, although genetics and age contribute to the gradual graying of one's hair, as we sort of get old and our body no longer produces the pigment that would keep our hair a particular color, stress can speed up that process considerably.
Yes, so a 2020 study by Zhang et al. And 15 other et als in this one. So there's a lot of et als. So I think any of those authors on that were not expecting to be part of that title. They would have had
right.
to. But they showed an intense acute stress in mice caused their hair to rapidly gray. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Now, hair that is already grown does not seem to turn gray once it's grown. It seems to sort of form in its color. But our hair grows fairly rapidly. And the hair that's being produced at the follicle will start to turn gray. And then it'll just continue producing gray hair. So essentially, it'll be brown and then it'll gray out as it gets longer. Or if it's cut, then it'll go from having partial color and partial gray to being just gray when the colored part gets cut away. Or if it naturally falls out, for example, then as that follicle reproduces, the future hair will all be gray.
What they discovered is that stress caused a significant release of the neurotransmitter noradrenaline, or norepinephrine. I said that on the first try. How cool is that?
You did. That was great.
Which rapidly wiped out pigment-producing stem cells called melanocytes in the hair follicles.
So those, as you said, those are the stem cells, and those are sort of the little factories, if you will, that are producing pigments, melanin specifically. And there's actually multiple types of melanin that are responsible for the variety of hair color that you might see. So you have eumelanin and pheomelanin are the types of melanin. And so those are essentially responsible for, if you sort of balance the levels of those, or the depending on how much there is of each one, it sort of ranges from the black-brown color to sort of a red-brown color. But there's also a mutation on a certain receptor, which is melanocortin 1, or MC1R, that will result in red hair. So there's that sort of mutation that can happen. So those two types of melanin are sort of responsible for the variety of hair colors that we see across people.
We always knew those red hairs were a result of a mutation. Oh, poor redheaded folks. They get so much flack, and I don't understand why.
It's true.
It's the whole thing. Now, essentially, the stress killed the economy in our cells, and so the pigment factories closed, and everyone had to go home. That's what it was. The factory closed down. Now it's just a ghost town. So your gray hairs are just ghost towns. Yep. But the hair factory stayed open. The actual machinery stayed open. And they just couldn't produce any color any longer. So your hair is still growing. It just can't do the thing that it used to do.
Yeah, that's sort of the analogy version of this, is that the economy tanked. While the hair was going to keep going, it just wasn't going to be colorful any longer. But
right,
as a counter to this, all is not lost. So that first study we referenced was in 2020. There was a second study in 2021 following up, because that first study obviously was with mice. The second study was actually looking at humans and found that a reduction in stress actually caused some of these melanocytes to become active again. And they started producing pigment. And what they found was, in their study, one person, as an example, who went on vacation returned, and 5 of their previously gray hairs had returned to their normal color. So what they essentially suggested was that the signs of aging or stress that are prevalent in the graying of our hair can actually be somewhat reversed. Now, over time, that pigment's going to continue to just shut down slowly. And you're going to eventually go gray as our hair follicles it's harder and harder for them to produce that pigment. But if we're young enough and we could be producing that pigment, if we can have a less stressful life, the evidence seems to suggest that we might get some of the color back in our hair.
I love that. So basically what this is like a vacation is a bailout for the factory.
There you go. I like that. That's exactly it. The vacation is the government bailout that gets the factory, that gets the workers at least back in the doors.
Back to work.
Yeah, for a while until they retire.
Yeah, until they retire, which is, just a couple of years down the road, hopefully.
So the evidence suggests that stress can, in fact, cause our hair to become gray as it starts wiping out the pigment-producing stem cells. But we can recover some of that if we get enough of a government bailout for the factories of our hair cells.
I love it.
Perfect. Well, then I think we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish. This mini is out.
See ya.
You've been listening to Why We Do What We Do. You can learn more about this and other episodes by going to www.wwdpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you have an awesome day.